Welcome to the Juneteenth episode of the Afros and Knives podcast. Tonight's guest is brilliant food writer and the host of a Hungry Society podcast on Heritage Radio, Korsha Wilson. And I am your host, Tiffany Rosier. Our conversation steps away from the traditional format as we discuss the current state of Black food and Black lives and what the future could look like. So consider this more of a State of the Union address, but given by two very dope Black women. From the daily fireworks displays throughout the whole of New York City, leaving the air smelling of sweaty feet and burnt hair, to the online cookouts and symposiums, and the global uprising against police brutality, oppression, colonization, and white supremacy, I believe you can agree that we are indeed in the middle of wild, wild times.
Hi, my name is Korsha Wilson. I'm a food writer and the founder of A Hungry Society, which takes a look at the food world and people who are making it dope right now and not getting enough attention. So oftentimes that's chefs of color, Black chefs, Black writers, people all over the food landscape who I think are doing incredible work and should be seen way more.
Agreed on that. And there's just so many numbers, large numbers. But yes, tonight we are not going to have it's not going to be our regular or my regularly formatted program where I just ask questions and listen intently. We are going to discuss essentially the state of affairs for Black folks and Black folks who work in food specifically. So consider this kind of a State of the Union.
Yes, the State of the Food Union.
I mean, just because there's just so much. There's, I mean, we can start at the top with this COVID and just work our way down because the hits just keep coming. 2020 came in real hot for most
super hot.
Has no chill, and we are sitting in our homes just sweating. It's so funny. I got to New York in April. I got to Boston in January, and so I've literally been like moving through the seasons. And now it's like you're sitting in a room, it's hot, it's muggy, and you're just like, okay, it was just cold, I just had a coat on. It's like there's no time to process.
There's no in between.
Right. Everything just keeps kind of overlapping, so you just don't have a way to there's no closure on anything. Everything's just open at this point. And you're just like, okay, all of this, I need to close a few of the tabs on my browser right now, and I can't because the minute I turn my head, something lights up. Case in point, I was leaving Boston, leaving America's Test Kitchen, which was a hot mess. I haven't told anyone else really the saga of the entire thing there, but good Lord, they have some work to do. And I ended up in Philly for a short minute because I thought I was going to be there, and I was doing some work for Jamila at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and then I got a call to interview for a position at the Bon Appetit Test Kitchen.
Oh, wow.
So that was, you're right about that one. So that was in the middle of March. That was March 17th, somewhere around there. It was right before the shelter-in-place order came for New York City. And so I was like, okay, well, then I got a phone call, or Jesse reached out to me from their staff, and we had a quick chat, and I kind of had a few things on my radar already. There was already, he already kind of threw up a red flag for me, and shout out to him because he was definitely looking out when I didn't realize he was looking out. And so
Jesse is amazing.
He really is. And I was just like, thank you, because he just wanted to talk through what are your intentions, and this is the climate here, and he just really kind of gave me a really good understanding before my interview. And so then I had my interview with Miss Morocco, really sweet. He asked most of the right questions, and that seemed to have gone well. And so we tried to schedule a stage for like the following week. And by that, and that was like a Tuesday. So by that Friday, their offices were closed.
Things were shut down. Yep.
Things
had escalated. Yep.
I was like, oh, it took 4 days for that to happen. So I made my way to New York because we didn't know how long this was going to last. So I made my way to New York. I'm in Harlem now with my sister. And I was like, well, I'll just be nearby just in case, like if this lasts a couple of weeks, at least I'm here and I'm not trying to like get from Philly to here. And of course that was in April. And, fast forward, it's almost July. So yes.
Yeah, it has been a time. I've been in the same place since March. So my apartment in West New York, New Jersey, which is right across the water from like the west part of Midtown Manhattan. And yeah, it has just been, like you said, the hits just keep on coming. Like it's been the longest time, but the shortest time. It's just like...
It really is. It's like there are days, the days go really fast, but the weeks take forever.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, it's Monday morning. And then you turn around and it's like Sunday again. And you're like, well, what the hell?
Yeah, it's a weird Twilight Zone-y type of feeling right now. To be alive in 2020. None of us were prepared for this
at all. And it's like, I don't know if you can prepare. I don't know if someone told us last year that this was what this was going to look like. I don't know how you would prepare for that.
Right.
Like we saw everyone's emergency preparedness like options, and most people bought their body's weight worth of toilet paper. And
for some reason, like that was
why you can't eat that. I don't understand why you have so much of it. And so it was like, if we told them last year that this was going to happen, I don't think anyone would have made wiser choices. I just think they would have done the foolishness sooner, in opposed to later. And so that's why I was just like, well, most people just aren't great in these types of emergencies. I think Black people shine because we are used to like a shit show on a number of like showing up to something and not being what you expected, or it blowing up and you're just like, okay, really? Like now I have to like fix, and like we're big problem solvers and we troubleshoot like on our feet. So I think we're a bit more agile in these types of spaces. But outside of that,
I was saying this earlier. It's just been amazing to watch the ways in which the Black food community has like really taken this time to not only like completely like ground ourselves in one another, but also make, having discussions or talk, like they're giving like Black food folks and Black food and beverage and Zella Palmer with Dillard in New Orleans, like the whole like symposiums virtually about all these topics in food and food media, specifically for Black folks and featuring Black folks. And it's amazing to watch how all this came together. Like finding a way out of no way is like just this like incredibly beautiful superpower that like I see our community having. And like I hesitate to say that because it implies that we're superhuman in some way, when in reality we are completely human and we've been forced to find ways out of no way because we've been given less. And I think that's an important thing to acknowledge at the same time as we're acknowledging the beauty, also acknowledging the lack of resources that have been allocated to Black communities like forever.
It's amazing. I mean, I always tell people like watching the African American community and Black community in the United States is like a masterclass in how to take pain and turn it into something, because it's all the time. I did an interview this morning with Jocelyn Jackson from Justice Kitchen out in Oakland, and we were talking about the fact that, like, her time in Africa, they lost a family member from the host family she was staying with, and there are these two things that happen. There's mourning, and then there's grieving. And the fact that she was so articulate about separating those two things, because I told her, like, it's interesting how that is reflected here, even without a direct connection or link to our ancestral roots. We do the same thing here, as a community. We mourn for people, and we also grieve them, and they're really two different processes. And so, like, with people, especially in this current moment, with the public loss of so many Black lives, and because we all have our own personal, like, individual losses, because people forget, like, it was quickly forgotten that with COVID-19, Black communities were disproportionately affected. And so we're already processing the loss of so many lives because of that, and then to add, like, these violent deaths that are just now being released to the public, not that they hadn't been happening, but now there's eyes on them, unlike any other time in history, really. And so we're collectively trying to mourn and grieve all of these people we knew and people we did not know. Like, they're representatives of people we actually are connected to directly. So, like, to have a community that is constantly in a state of mourning and grieving, and at the same time, we have learned to use that pain to create all the things that attract people to the United States to begin with. All the things that make it sexy to live here and sexy to move here are the things we've done and the things we've contributed. And so, like, we simultaneously take all of that pain and all of that rage and everything else, all the ugliness, and we, like, turn out shit like Baychella. Like, let's be real. So, like, that's what the hell we do. And so for me, it's just like, I cannot imagine if we were well taken care of and treated like human beings, and treated with tenderness and kindness and compassion and empathy, what we could turn out, what we could really offer the communities we live in and the society we live in.
It's really been, there's also, like, I struggle with, there is quite a bit of pain that is explored, but there's also so much joy. And I think when it comes to foodways in particular, there's, like, even like today we're talking on Juneteenth, there's so much joy in Juneteenth celebrations. And for me, like, it's weird being in the height of summer and not going to, like, a crab boil or going to a cookout, or,
Exactly.
Like, our dining traditions are oftentimes, like, super communal, and everyone getting together and catching up, and, kids running around and music playing. And, it's, so it is, like, a grieving and mourning period for that as well, of, like, well, it's not quite safe to do these things that are, like, so integral to our culture and community and a sense of community. So how do we recreate that? Because, even though we can chat virtually, it's not the same as, like, being together in person.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I've been struggling with lately, is, like, how do I bring that sense of communion into my life in different ways of, I definitely feel connected, and have talked more to my fellow Black culinarians in, like, the past few months than, like, the past couple of years. Like, we've been in communication, texting, emailing, FaceTiming, phone calls, like, just, like, we've been in touch, but, like, I do miss, it's never an adequate substitute for, like, seeing someone face to face, giving them a hug, sharing a meal with them, like, there's just,
absolutely,
I can't find a substitute, and it's hard because I get so much inspiration from that.
Oh yeah, because I always tell people, if you've ever been in community or in, like, physical spaces with Black people, we are expressive. And so like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even down to like laughing at a joke, it's like there's a dispersal of bodies, there's walking, there's running in place, there's just so much physicality to even like a laugh
Mm-hmm.
that you do, like it's a part of like how we express ourselves. And so it is kind of that component that's missing, because it's hard to capture that through like an Instagram live.
Right.
And we get really close, like to your point about Black food folks. I was talking to Therese Nelson about like some type of like Black food awards scenario that is
Mm-hmm.
outside of like that James Beard space,
Yes.
and what
Absolutely.
that could look like. Because I'm all about things being non-traditional and kind of working outside the box. Like it doesn't have to look the way traditional awards programs end up looking, which is like just self-congratulatory and really self-indulgent. And I wanted something that really was kind of rooted in community, and like not necessarily an award for best or better or great work in that way, where you're kind of like judging it on that scale, but more of just a recognition of the importance of the work in the moment. And so like with Black food folks, I was like, God, they would get an award immediately, like to galvanize
Right.
an entire community around just conversations. Like I think it's been those conversations have been such a catalyst for other things to happen. And just finding a place to like find each other in like the madness. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember like when we first fell into like the quarantine, I was like making my way from like Philly, then into South Jersey at my dad's, and then here to New York. And while I was at my dad's, I was just like, well, why don't I just do, because at the time it was like this weird sadness had kind of come over everyone when we realized like we are going to be in this for the long haul. And so it was, I could tell people were feeling disconnected from one another. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do like a family night, and people can log in and like log into Zoom, and we can just like just touch base with each other, check in on each other, and that kind of thing. So I did that for a few weeks, and then, gave like Colleen and Clay some time to breathe. And then, when they jumped in with their conversations, I didn't have to do those family nights anymore, because those Instagram live talks with them were like filling that space. And so it's been incredible to like watch that seed grow into something like this, because I think people are just so like, the more and more people find out about the fact that these things are happening and they are logging on. And of course, now with all these new eyes on Black people, and and that's
Right.
a whole different part of this conversation. If you really want to learn how to like be and to embrace Blackness and embrace color around you and embrace the community, these are great talks to sit in on. I don't necessarily know how
Yeah.
much you can contribute if you aren't directly a part of the community, but they're definitely safe spaces for you to sit in and like, and listen and like pay attention to the history of what we've done here in the food community across the country, and how our voices and our hands and our labor have influenced what you eat and how you eat to this day. Like I was talking with someone about how ancient Egyptians actually introduced the concept of coursed meals and
Mm.
not eating everything at one time. And so like they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, that practice goes back a really long time. So, it's like it's got roots in Africa. So yes, the reason why you have like 19 courses at your favorite fine dining restaurant is because we brought all of that knowledge with us. So, just like being able to open people's eyes to their real history, I think that's one of the more interesting responses I've seen to kind of like the current levels of like white people wokeness right now, is
Right.
that the people I personally know that are friends of mine, that are dear friends of mine, who are now having to unlearn all of like the trash education that they got in public school and relearn like actual US history in like the reality of it, is that I've just gotten a lot of rage, a lot of anger. Like, how could they not tell us this stuff? Like, what did they think? And I'm like, well, guys, remember, the education system was less about learning something and more about like
Right.
indoctrination and preparing
More
you to work
about
on,
telling you this is how things were and this is how things are.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
it's been really interesting to watch this like awakening, or people are talking about a food media reckoning, and it's like I don't. It's exhausting, because it's like, I mean, we're having. I'm being asked to talk about cultural appropriation, it's like we've been talking about this for years, and
Forever.
it's still completely centered on whiteness and white people and how they feel about things. And I don't think that's pushing things forward. I think
No, no,
that's
no, no.
more an examination of, white people wanting to hear from Black folks about like what they think is wrong instead of like
Right.
actually wanting to be accountable for the work they're doing or not doing to make things better. Which
Exactly.
there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah.
And,
It's
I've had to like
it's
turn down like opportunities to speak on like, because they're like, oh, talk about cultural appropriation and bon appetit and how you feel about all that, and it's like, for what? Like, what is your intention with asking me to do that?
exactly. Exactly. It's just I feel like it's so I know like at the very beginning of this interesting turn of the tide, I had reached someone that of course, everyone I think had like a very lateral experience where like your DMs were blowing up, your email was blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
People were either apologizing or trying to take responsibility or trying to understand or how can I help you or can I just send you money? And you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to deny your money. However, it cannot come from like a place of like absolving your guilt
Right.
or like thinking this is a
Or
solution to a
charity or
right. Like, no,
right.
please don't make a donation in the name of like white supremacy. That is not the business.
Yeah.
It's not what we're doing. And so at some point reached out to Teresa again and I was just like, is it just me or are you, I was like, are you super cynical right now? Like, I just felt
Yeah.
like I was halfway between cynicism and gratitude. Like, it was nice to wake up and see that my Instagram followers had tripled in 2 days. But at the same time, like, you can't help but to be cynical and skeptical of like motives and intent. And because of that, there's no sustainability in that relationship, like, or
Right.
exchange. So I asked her, I'm like, I can't be the only person like almost irritated right now. And then Stephen from Whetstone had posted something on Instagram that was like really eloquent and like definitely
Yeah.
said exactly what I was
God.
thinking. I was like, thank you. I was like, I can't be the only one feeling conflicted about this right now and like wanting people to just fully stop and think. Like, I think there was just no pause. It was just reactionary. And now they're trying to dig their way out of the reaction because it's so easy to live in the problem. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we've lived in the problem for 401 years at this point. So we've been living in it. And it's like now because you've like remembered that we're here, it's, you're engaging with the problem all over again. And because of white privilege, you can exit the conversation whenever you want. So it's really easy to
Mm-hmm.
kind of go, oh, I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. Or I feel overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to hit the exit and y'all let me know when you have some suggestions for me. So like, that's a privilege to like be able to just go. And like, we have this again, like I told people, I'm like, I was Black yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I was Black this morning. I will be
Mm-hmm.
Black tomorrow. So this does not change because it gets like we don't have the opportunity to leave Blackness because we are uncomfortable or something is painful or whatever. And so like watching this like reckoning of the food media space, I'm like, but that's been a long time coming. It's not like this is the only place where things are kind of like centered around the white experience in food. I think you saw it. I mean, like when you watch certain publications fold, when you watched things like when the Food Network started to lose certain talents because again, like the content was stale and it was getting to
Right.
a point that not even white people wanted to look at white people do any of this stuff anymore. And so
Right.
it was just
And I
like,
think it's like it sends a message that, it, this is for a certain kind of person, or it's just like ignoring of, you can tell as a reader, as a consumer, when you are ignored, when your
mm,
like eyes aren't valued or your dollar isn't valued. And yeah, like to your point of like people looking away, I think that's absolutely true. And, consumers get to decide if they want to continue to support an organization or not. Yeah, I don't know. It's
yeah.
I'm trying to be hopeful about this all leading to something like super positive and like a lot of big changes.
Yeah.
I'm the the like longer this goes on, the more I'm like, people are just going to want to
Yeah.
be comfortable instead
Yes.
of actually making some change and doing the work.
Yeah.
But I'm naturally optimistic, so I'm still holding on to some optimism, but it is
Yeah.
fading by the day. But I'm
She's like,
trying to hold on to it. I'm trying to
you
keep
know,
it.
it's so funny, like when when this particular issue popped up and like COVID, everyone had to, like, I guess, so a small percentage of the population had collectively decided that COVID was over and it was just a trend. Me and my sister have been talking about it every day at length, of course. And, one of the first things that popped up for me is like, because people don't understand how connected systemic racism is to capitalism and how essential it is to how the country is built. It's woven into the fabric. And so to ask an establishment to like remove a single thread that is essential to their survival is going to be a big ask. And so when people are like, yeah, we want, we need you to take action, and you have to understand that this action is likely going to be painful and it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you more than you think it's going to cost you, because you're asking for you're asking for legislative changes. You're asking for changes in governance. You're asking to literally rewrite history in a way. And so, like, when we first started and everyone was like, what do I read? I need more information. Teach me something. I need to understand what's happening. And, the long list of books that Black people were laboring to create to help people, like, just unlearn and relearn what they needed to know in order to even move forward. And, I had a few people ask me, and I think those numbers died down as I started to suggest the things they should start with. And I love all the work that's been done, in that space. But the first thing I suggested to anybody who asked me was to go read the Virginia Slave Code. Like,
Mhm.
if you want to know how we got here, that's where you start. Because there was a group of people who literally sat down and wrote laws as a foundation for the country you currently live in. And because they're so ingrained at this point into how we operate. It's like it's an operation system, and it's like an operating system on a computer. If you remove one, it's so funny when you go into try to eliminate or delete a file in your computer that is essential to its operation, it'll tell you, we cannot remove this file. Not without your computer blowing up, not without you having to pay a visit to like a tech guy or the geek squad. It's going to decimate this computer. You're not going to be able to, it's going to be unusable. And so, like, systemic racism is the same way. Like, the United States literally functions on it. It's required in order for us to operate in any way. So to ask to start to dismantle it, like, that is going to be, you're going to have some system failure for a minute, because you have, like, the entire policing system is built on slave policing and
Right.
capturing runaway slaves. So they never got rid of that system. It just evolved with the times.
Right.
So because it's hard to extricate that, you can't like all of a sudden remove something that was essential to capital. I mean, I think that was why I was like, learn about slavery first, and not slavery and your feelings around slavery, because that was the first thing I ever posted on Facebook that people were like, wow, because I was like, I need people to get out of their emotions about this.
Right.
Slavery is
Exactly.
bad. We all feel bad about it. Like, it's a thing to feel bad about. It's immoral. It's ridiculous. So yes, now that we understand that it's inhumane, and like, let's look at the logistics of this thing. Let's look at why it was beneficial, why it was profitable, because while slavery is, I think, one of the bigger evils of humanity, it is also tremendously profitable. So, like, when people talk about the Civil War and they talk about the succession of the South, they're very trite. They're flippant about it, because they're like, well, they just wanted to succeed because they wanted to keep their slaves. I'm like, yeah, but this was not about a relationship with their slaves. No one
Right.
was
It was about
asking
capital.
them.
Yeah.
Exactly. They weren't asking someone to break up with their boyfriend or divorce their spouse. They were asking them to give up what would be equivalent to $300 billion of commerce. So you're asking people to give up that much capital. So if you were to sit here and have a conversation right now, and ask the public in this country, would you be prepared to give up a $300 billion industry? People would have a pause. It's a
Right.
lot of money. That equals a lot of jobs. That equals a lot of progress. And so when people start to have these conversations around dismantling racism, that's the thing we have to realize. Like, we all collectively have to come to grips with the fact that when we start to dismantle a system that's this big and this old and this essential to how half of us live, it's going to be a painful separation. It's going to be, I mean, the reconstruction of the South, like looking at that, the fact that it was such an important economic issue for the South to keep slavery as part of their commerce, that they were prepared to succeed from the Union. Like, that's a
Right.
big fucking deal. So like when people were like, what do I need to know? How do I understand this? I'm like, well, first, like, stop being so emotional about it and be pragmatic. Like, slavery was $1 billion business to the
Right.
point where they could lose entire ships of slaves and still function.
Mm. Yeah, I think about often, like, okay, how does this show up in my field of work, like in food media? How do we, I think I think the
Yeah.
word like dismantle has come up a lot in these conversations and like the
Yeah.
aftermath of, um, videos of police brutality and people coming to terms
Mm,
with racism as being like integral to the structure and foundation of this country. And I think I pray and I hope that there's an awareness of how these things become ingrained in all of the structures, not just policing, but also, food media and
yeah,
who can do it
absolutely.
and who historically has been able to be a full-time food writer, who gets hired at these publications and what their resumes look like. And I think it's all related. And I hope
Yeah.
people are waking up to the fact that everything is entangled. And like you said,
Mm,
you can't pull one thread. Like, it's not just one piece where you're just like, oh, okay,
yeah.
pulled it out, we're good.
Yep.
Like, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of creativity to like rethink, well, what can this structure look like? Who should it serve? Who should it be for?
Exactly.
And how do we empower people within it? Like, not just, I think so many of these conversations come back to capitalism and not being extractive
Yeah.
in labor. In, that's not just physical labor, but also mental labor. Um,
Mm,
how can we actually create structures that provide, financial security, but also not at the cost of human beings?
exactly. Exactly. Because it's like you have to sell, while I love the passion around like the conversations, like around like the Bon Appetit brand and the Condé Nast brand and like, publishers that publish cookbooks and things like that. Like, I appreciate like the beginnings, the seeds of these conversations. At the same time, you have to be a bit pragmatic about it and go, well, to completely tear apart a company that employs thousands of people and, generate commerce in a capitalist society, you have to look at what responsibility you're willing to take when you dismantle that and
Mm-hmm.
what you're asking people to do, because it's not just going to be the food writer or the editor that's going to be let go from their job. If that brand closes, if those doors close, the janitor who cleans the building loses their job, the person working in maybe the company cafeteria loses their job. Like, there's just so many, there's an effect there that we have to like be really mindful of. And like you said, we have to be creative about the solution, because you're asking for, like, the result looks really simple compared to the process of getting there. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you need to diversify your food stories. You need to diversify your food reporting, diversify the voices writing these stories. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, to get there, we have to understand that we have to change people's attitudes towards the value of the Black voice and how that moves a magazine, how that will move an issue of a copy of a newspaper. If no one's prepared to go to a newsstand and buy a $12 copy of a magazine, or buy the digital subscription, because they're not connecting to the stories being told, because they're not connecting to the voices in that publication. All that results in less revenue, and less revenue means people don't get paid. That means, companies go under. That means buildings close and businesses go bankrupt. So, like, in our efforts to steer the conversation, now that people are asking us, what do you guys want? What do you want us to do? What do you need us to do? In an effort to steer that conversation, like, just keep in mind that these companies are mammoth. They are huge. And so to, like, unpack the economics of change like that means that there's a few conversations you have to have before then. There has to be an elevated value of the Black voice, like, period. It has to translate into dollars. That means that when this particular Black writer writes for your publication, you see a bump in revenue. You see an increase in sales. You see, you know what I'm saying? Like, it has to translate into dollars, because we live in a capitalist system. If we didn't, this conversation probably could sound really different. But because dollars make decisions, that's the thing. And I just, like, I love my people. I love Black people. We just have to remember that we this is how this works. This is the exchange. Your voice has value, and sometimes it's not us that determines that value. We know that just amongst each other. The market determines our value a lot of times. So we have to now talk about the market.
Yeah. Well, I also want to make sure we spend some time talking about, like, how we're both doing and, like, in all of this, like, and looking forward, like, what does
this look like?
Yeah. What does this work?
What do we do?
Not even just work, but, like, joy, or rest, or self-care. Like, what does that look like going forward? Because it's been tough.
Yeah, it's true. I don't, I'm just trying to drink as much hot tea as possible, and
and get some rest, and
get some sleep. I mean, I just
food.
I had to repurchase, like, a bottle of, like, 10,000 milligram vitamin D. I just noticed, like, certain things, if they're missing right now, are, like, I feel the effects immediately. I have, like, $300 worth of skincare, and I just make sure I spend time.
My skincare routine game has been, I got it down pat now.
Like, come on.
I can do it, like, way more now. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like focusing on those things that I can actually see changing. Like, I bought one of those personal microdermabrasion things. And so I do that once a week. I bought a really cool face mask, and I do that once a week. And so just, like, those things that make me, like, stop thinking about everything outside of me and make me, like, focus in on, like, what's happening with me specifically. So, like, there's someone I was watching there was one point in the last few weeks where all I permitted myself to consume were videos about, like, home renovations. That was it.
Wow. That's amazing.
I'm just like, I am not watching anything else.
Yeah.
Don't ask. And so, because it was all too much, and I was like, including, like, food media, I was like, no, I'm not watching any of that either, because it's just going to make me think about some other things. Yep. So literally just, like, I want to watch someone renovate their garage and turn it into a little, like, like, she shed or whatever, and just get my life.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something I did at the beginning of quarantine that, it's not for everyone, but if you are looking for a way to, like, engage with Instagram in a way that's not as triggering, basically I made a burner account, and I only follow, like, it's called, like, saddest times, where it's, like, satisfying, like, videos of people, like, carving wood, or doing carving, or petting, trimming, like, a dog that's super fluffy.
Love it.
And then I also, with that account, only follow, like, positive news accounts. So, like, Good News Movement, Upworthy, Good. It's just, like, an account I can log into where I have 0 followers, and
I love that.
It's just, like, me taking in stuff that's, if I want to, like, give myself a mental break of just scrolling something, I can do it in a way that's, like, just taking in, like, really good news and like silly videos. So
Oh, I
I
love that.
highly recommend doing that.
Oh, I know I have one Instagram account I follow that's just like dogs. And that is like between that and then my sister, who is one of the most ridiculous people on planet Earth, and she works in theater professionally, so she's having they're having their own situation in that space, but she finds the most ridiculous like videos, and she has one that is this. It's a video of a, a couple of tourists, probably in like Morocco, and they're supposed to be doing a tour on a camel or on a set of camels, and the wranglers are wow. I mean, so the couple is sitting on one camel, and I don't understand why this happened the way it did. And the man has like he slides forward, and the camel can't stand up on all fours.
Oh
So
no.
it's like its front legs are buckling, and it's pure comedy because the wrangler is trying to like because the camel keeps walking and it won't stop moving, so people can help it. So this camel's attached to another camel too, and so that camel has no choice but to keep following this one around. It's the most hilarious thing. And then someone figured out that if they dub the song "Stand" by Donnie McClurkin over top of it,
Stop.
it is. We have shed so many tears watching that stupid
Oh
video,
wow, that's
and
funny.
it's incredible. And then this morning she sends this video of there's this dog that their owner pretends they're interviewing them about some issue, and the dog literally just walks up to the mic and starts sniffing it, and all you hear in the microphone is these sniffs. And I'm like, this is the best thing I've seen. I'm just like, this is the stuff that we're doing in order to keep our sanity,
Yeah.
is to find as like get as ridiculous as possible. I'm on a Golden Girls binge at this point. Just like that's my go-to. My sister, I think she's watching Superstore all over again. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
just
it's been, yeah, like when quarantine started, my husband and I, we hadn't watched like we only watched Black Panther in the Marvel universe. So like we started from the beginning and started watching like all the Marvel movies. And so that's been like a fun way to like turn off our brains for a bit and like get absorbed into
absolutely
this like superhero universe. Um,
yes.
what else have we been watching?
I've gone through all the Star Wars again,
Oh yeah.
and I'm
That's like a
actually
must in my house
it,
because like my husband loves Star Wars. So does my mom. Like
I
they bond
just
over
huge
that.
fan. Huge fan. I even like I've tried to watch the last one, like the Rise of Skywalker, a few
Hmm.
times because there's so many like little like nuggets and there's so much nuance in there that I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I gotta watch it again. And then I know at least once a year I watch the Matrix trilogy because it's just there's always something new there. It's always fresh, and I
Yeah.
don't know why. It just feels fresh every time I watch it. And then the National Theatre in London, they were airing a lot of their shows live on YouTube, and so we
Oh wow.
managed to watch. They did this gorgeous version of A Streetcar Named Desire. I mean, absolutely stunning.
Oh
We watched Jane Eyre, which if you can go watch it on YouTube, I think they're just still replaying them. It will absolutely floor you.
wow.
I'm, because I've always been a very big reader. Like I've worn bifocals since second grade. So I've always been a big reader. And so like Jane Eyre was one, the Bronte sisters were definitely part of the collection. And like Jane Eyre, that the way the director like executed her vision is absolutely stunning.
Mm,
So if you like
wow.
theater, you love literature, like that, you will get completely immersed. They also they ran Frankenstein, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Miller, and they both reverse roles. And so they showed one with Benedict as the monster and Johnny as Dr. Frankenstein, and then they reverse roles and they run the play again. So you watch both versions just to see how
Wow.
both of them kind of
Oh, that's
walk
really
through the
cool.
story. It's incredible. I love both of those actors anyway, and it's just ironic they both play Sherlock Holmes, and
Yeah.
so it's just like I am able to absolutely nerd out. Like I watch Hamlet once a year. I just like
Yeah.
I
It's
found my good.
it's like yeah, I find myself like looking for even like going back to like classic films.
Yes.
And I'm doing air quotes as I say that because who gets to determine that. But like, I just watched An American in Paris and revisited Singing in the Rain.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's even that's like fun and just something to like again take my mind off of things and like bring
Yes.
me into this world of like whimsy and whatever. But then like when it's done, I'm like, wait, what year was this? 54? Like things are like super segregated and like they're like dancing and like
You're
snapping
like,
and
yep,
everything's great. And it's like, wait a minute.
I'm
Where
about
was
to ruin this whole experience.
right. And it's like, oh right. It was 1950, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
you just try to like keep your brain compartmentalized in those things. Like, I'm going to enjoy this because it's enjoyable and
yeah.
not think about how problematic the circumstances are surrounding its
Right.
production.
Yeah.
I just, and it's the same thing for me with like those particular, like the Shakespeare plays and things like that. It's, Shakespeare was that guy that was he was commenting on his time, and a lot of the issues were very similar. Watching, I do a ton of Jane Austen. I find that her commentary on life and on feminism and misogyny and all the things that had existed during her time that exist now, her commentary is always just like witty and bright and clear and like clear minded. And so I watch Pride and Prejudice on repeat. I watch Northanger Abbey a lot. Jane Mansfield Park, the most current version of that, I think, came out in 2005.
Wait, Jane
That,
Mansfield?
no, Mansfield Park by Jane Austen.
Oh, okay.
That book in itself is a bit weighty for like her work, but the current version of the movie, like the themes they touch on slavery, they touch on the slave trade, because at the time the slave trade had just started. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
because of her position, because of where she lived and being in England, and her commentary about the wealthy and about the elite in England was always like scathing and like definitely riddled with a lot of side eye and, and like attitude there. And I love it. And so her commentary about slavery during that time it was an indictment on it. It was like, this should be, because at the time England was talking about abolition and about abolishing the practice, because they realized, okay, this is not going in the long run, like we're going to make our money, but we'll be bankrupt morally. So like that shows up in the film, and it's it's the way it's like layered into the story. And because of the story itself and the heroine in the story, like she comes from a family of abject poverty, and she's sent to her family members with wealth, and the transition between the two, and how like her financial circumstances change, but her mind doesn't, and her moral compass doesn't. And so it's just like Jane Austen was one of those writers. Like she was that person who had commentary and opinions at a time where women weren't even really allowed to read. So, like I do find myself lost in her world quite a bit. But yeah, and then at the same time, I will turn around, like I said, and watch like 9 episodes of Golden Girls. So
hey, that's okay. I mean, we contain multitudes. You get to do whatever you want, and it can be disparate or very similar or whatever.
I just always thought that I could be like Dorothy Spornak. I just always felt like I understood her life and her values, and like to have a home in Florida with a lanai, like that's the business. Like if I can retire like that,
is that the goal?
Yes, like just a couple of older roommates with some cheesecake and like healthy dating life. Like come on, man. Like
Blanche is my favorite personally.
She's
so much, and also Betty White's character.
Oh, Rose Nyland, yes.
If I could be a mix of those two, like ditzy but still out on the town.
And Rose was like that low key wisdom. Like you could work your way through her storytelling. You could really find some real nuggets in there. And
absolutely. It didn't sound smart on the surface, but she had some wisdom.
She really did.
Whatever town that she grew up in, St. Olive.
St. Olive. St. Olive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Her family were dairy farmers, I believe. It was back when like we had television writers and before the writer's strike. And I was so cool. When we were growing up, like we had like a staff of writers, man, and now it's like a hodgepodge at this point. So we
Mm,
knew the moment that the writer's strike happened because television just was not, it was never the same.
mm.
And so, like the way television is written now, like there's just, it's not, there were certain formulas that absolutely worked. And the ones that they have now, like some of them, they're just like shots in the dark. You're just like, what is this? The show is
What is happening?
terrible.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I lament a lot. Like I give anything like 20 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, what
Can't.
is this supposed to be? What are
Yeah.
we doing? This is
So speaking of bad, that's something I also recommend is like a movie that's so bad that it's funny.
oh yeah.
So we went up to see some friends in New Hampshire, and we watched Cats and Catwoman. And
Oh
man,
God.
if you want a good laugh, watch either
Oh
of them
God.
with
Oh
drinks,
God.
of course. Like and we were talking the whole time, and it was just so funny. They're
Oh,
both
not
so bad
cats.
that they're
They're
funny.
so bad. They're so deeply terrible. Like my brothers still live in Arizona with my mom, and my older brother started to send my sister like movie challenges, and all of the movies are terrible. So like her first movie challenge was Supergirl from like the 1980s.
Ooh.
One of the worst movies ever made. And she had the challenge is she has to get through it because most of these movies are like a half of Apple on like any particular like critic site.
Right.
And so she managed to get through Supergirl like painfully because there's a point in that movie where you're just like, what is happening right now? Where did this random mountain come from?
Right.
Why is this lady she's supposed to be like the Lex Luthor character, but she's like a bit more like a witch from like an 80s cartoon. It is the absolute worst movie. And the thing is they had like these heavy hitters in the movie, like these actors that have these huge like resumes and do all this really serious work. Like Faye Dunaway was in this movie. So it's really bad. But now we're like, there was one we did not too long ago, and I have removed and scrubbed the name of this movie from my mind because honestly, I don't even want to remember that I know it. And we got through probably 18 minutes of this movie.
Oof.
It was so
10
bad.
minutes.
I was just like, guys, I mean, it was cheaply done. When you read the backstory about the filmmaker, you feel bad for him because he was like an immigrant who wanted to make movies, and he was brought up in like a really like strict Muslim country. And so when he moved to the United States, he just let the gates open, and anything he thought was stereotypical of American culture made it into this movie. One of the main characters, he wears this wig, and wow. The wig is so bad, and you can see when he puts it on, and you're just like, what is happening? Why is there no continuity? So we got through that, and then my movie that I always go to when I'm looking for something that's terrible but hilarious is Highlander, from the 80s. Like that for me, my brother's like, why do you watch this movie? I'm like, it is so bad, it's great. What are you saying right now? It is such a terrible, like the overdub is horrible because most of the main characters don't speak English as a first language. They speak like Welsh or something. And they overdub the movie, and it's so bad.
Wow.
It is so bad, but it's really one of the greatest movies ever made. Like it's like Sean Connery's in it. So it's just, it's one of those. And like Queen does like the soundtrack for it. It's just, again, these really poor decisions all blended together. So yeah, absolutely recommend terrible movies to get lost in. Find you one for sure. But yeah, those things are definitely helping.
Yeah. I do have to head out in a minute.
Yeah, no worries.
I want to make sure that what do you want to like wrap up with? I want to make sure we like cover that too.
Well, to your point about like the future, and I'll do this very quickly. A concept I've been thinking about and working on, and actually have like built a website for, and have an Instagram for, and have written a pitch deck for, is a Black-owned digital media company, much like Tastemade or Tasty or any of those platforms, where we are developing content around food, travel, and lifestyle, specifically produced and written and curated from like Black producers and Black content creators and Black tastemakers. And so I'm kind of in the beginning stages. I'm just like
That's
literally we're working on.
amazing.
I'm just working, and right now I'm working on 2 video demos. I want to do one that's a demo for like a series where we look at just kind of ice cream culture through like the lens of the Black experience, like ice cream makers that are Black and shops like that. And so I'm working with a couple of folks that everybody will know. I'm not going to throw their names out there just yet until we get some of those projects working. But I wanted to do
in Harlem. Do you know Sugar Hill Creamery?
I do. I keep trying to order from there, and every time I go, they're not available on Postmates. I have to just walk over.
Yeah, definitely head over. The couple that runs it, Petruska Bazin Larsen, she's Haitian American, and her husband is white, and they're awesome. Their ice cream is delicious. They're really great. So like, you should definitely check them out if you're doing like an ice cream project.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the series itself is really about, and it's, for me, it was really important to have not just like Black stories, but Black storytellers. So I'm looking for people who are like great on camera, who have YouTube videos already or a YouTube series that kind of that looks at those particular areas. There's a girl who hosts a lifestyle show for a magazine called House Beautiful. And she does like one where she does kitchen tours. She has one where they did a series on like they built this house in Nashville. And so she was hosting that process as well. And she's just an incredible host. And you rarely see Black people in those like home makeover spaces. And she's just brilliant at it. And so I'm really paying more attention to like YouTube channels and people's Instagrams and like their content and how engaging they are on screen. Like Onika the Traveler, like I'd love to see her host a show that airs on this platform. So essentially it's an OTT, or what people consider like what they call over the top, which is essentially things like Netflix or Hulu. So you subscribe and you get access on your phone, on your computer, or on your television, and you subscribe to the app and you can watch all of the content. So some of them will be short videos, some of them will be long form videos, some of them will be like a long form documentary. So I'd love to like tap on like Michael Twitty to host a docu series and like that kind of thing. So I'm looking to like really just curate some content right now.
That's awesome.
So I'm working on the website right now. I'm doing what I'm planning on doing is what I call like a preview, so people can start to understand what the platform will look like and what it will offer. So I'm going to pull on content that already exists on YouTube and just kind of create a place where we can like find all of it in one place. And you can like get into someone's YouTube channel, look at what they do, what they are, and like feature people who are already kind of doing this work. And That's then awesome. As we raise money for, because I'll probably we have a Patreon up at this point. So once we accumulate enough dollars to actually start producing some video demos, then I can actually put that in front of some investors as well. I would love for the community to be like an investor essentially. So I would love to see that first layer or first tier of investing or first round of investing to come directly from the community, because I want us to have ownership in it. So the name of the brand will be Set the Table Media. And that's really what it is. It's kind of like just creating a big table and inviting people to like hear our stories from these particular experiences and our point of view. Like, what it's like to travel as a Black person to countries where you don't see very many Black people, and
absolutely,
and that kind of thing. And then told from our point of view with our voice. And I want to be the person who's hiring Black filmmakers and Black videographers and Black editors. Like, I want us to be able to employ these people doing that other work as well.
When do you think you'll be able to like launch it?
I am going to have the website will be available, like the preview, and then like a lot of the information about the project in and of itself and its fundraising will be available next week. So people can start like just looking at the concept overall and getting an understanding of what the final product will be and then how they can participate. And then hopefully, because we're all kind of still in a lockdown space, hopefully next year we'll be able to like get those demos shot and then add those to like the pitch deck and start to like go through that next round of funding so that we can like really
Awesome.
be up and running and producing a lot more content.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a similar vein, I guess, just in terms of like content creation, I'm just planning on building out Hungry Society as much as possible. Um,
Mm,
I am planning on putting up on Monday a story with Chef Chris Scott about mentorship, and how important that is for young Black chefs. I did an interview with V. Cherie Williams, who runs Cuisine Noire and has for the past 10 years.
wow.
Um, a Q&A about what that's been like, and there's going to be a part 2 about how she feels about this whole food media reckoning and what she hopes to see happen. That I'm so excited to put up. And then, just I'm trying to find the right moment to add personal, like more bloggy type posts of like what I'm thinking about, what I'm seeing in the landscape, what I hope to see. But just, yeah, keeping that going, maybe moving into video, maybe moving into, interviews on camera instead of
Yeah.
just auditory, even though I
Yeah.
love podcasting and I love having conversations this way. I
Same.
think I want to just expand and, try and, it might not work out. Maybe it's just a couple of episodes, but, just still try. And
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
there's just so much beauty and wonderful things happening in the space that need to be documented and
Yep.
explored and celebrated. And so, yeah, that's my goal. It's just to show up and to follow the things that really excite me and really be creative with how I tell those stories or how I use this little platform I have, this little,
Yeah.
little thing I created to help other people be seen too.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's what I was, I hope for, like, just about any of the food podcasts, especially the Black ones I've been following. I'm like, to see how they've grown. And
Mm-hmm.
because, now that we're all kind of paused for a minute, we have access to each other in a way we haven't before. And so just, again, those collection of voices kind of being in one place and just watching communities like Black food folks grow and finding more and more people in those spaces to even talk to and put their stories out in the world. So, yeah. So I thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like, I
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
your voice in the world. Like every time someone pops up in my email, they're like, Korsha sent me here. She recommended that I talk to you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look at this. So yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that. I
No,
just,
that is what I'm about. Like I will always promote and share, and I just feel, I don't know, I feel so lucky to be part of like this community. So I'm gonna show off my community, and you are part of that.
definitely. I absolutely agree. So, well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate this. It was definitely needed. I was just like, where are we right now? Are
Oh,
we even on
so
planet
needed.
Earth at this point? And,
Oh, man, what a
and
day,
those
what a
conflict.
week, what a month, what a year.
I know. I was just like, well, let's see what Christmas looks like, guys. Let's bring it on.
Right.
Okay. Let's just
Yeah,
mix it all up
we'll
now.
try
Let's mix it
again
all up
in
now.
business.
So yeah. So anyway, but yes, but take care of yourself. I
Yes,
mean,
happy
we might,
Juneteenth.
yes. I mean, is happy the right word there? I
Right?
just
Who
feel
knows
like,
anymore?
are we really just, I mean, are we, it's a, I want to celebrate on behalf of my people, but let's be real. You abolished a law you had already enacted, keeping
Right.
people enslaved. And now,
Hello.
after 2 years, you sent law enforcement to enforce a law that you had
Right.
already passed. Thank you, but wow, guys.
Yeah,
Wow.
but
I
wow.
mean, that's a
Oh,
gold star for a job you should have already done. Cool, 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 cool.
right.
We'll take the win. It's not like we
Yeah.
like really acknowledge emancipation across the board, but yeah, like, oh, congratulations on being a better person and not being an absolute shit. Good for
Yeah.
you.
That's the
So
thing is
yeah,
like
like,
usually this interest and this like this desire to celebrate it leads to learning and uncovering more stories about emancipation celebrations. Like I'm sure it wasn't just in Texas where it became, a time to like get together and eat and drink and listen to music and hang out.
right.
Like, I think communities probably did that all over. We just don't know.
This is true, and I feel like Juneteenth is one of those days that you observe and not necessarily celebrate, kind of like Holocaust remembrance,
Mm-hmm.
where no one's out here throwing like major parties about Holocaust remembrance. No one's
Right.
like out
That
here
well, yeah,
turning
that
up in the
became
streets.
Yeah, that would be not appropriate.
Not
To do
appropriate.
that.
So I feel
Yeah.
like Juneteenth, in a way, can like there should be like a joyous observance for it, but not necessarily like fireworks level celebration seems like
Hmm.
inappropriate for
Yeah.
that. So yeah, especially if you are not a Black person who had like relatives and ancestors who were enslaved. Like
Right.
I don't think that's appropriate for you to do. So yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
I digress at this point. So yeah, so I am going to go eat my Juneteenth meal and
Yes,
have my
we're
red
gonna go get
drink.
some barbecue too. Like you
Yes.
inspired us, so we're gonna
Yes.
head out as well.
Cool. And I'll probably just watch Coming to America and then
You know what? That is the most appropriate Juneteenth movie
okay.
you've ever heard.
I mean, come on, she's your queen. Like, really? So yeah, so I will catch up with you soon, and we will definitely I'll keep everybody in the loop about Set the Table because I definitely want an audio component there, and I want
Yeah.
to be able to like have a podcast studio where people can come podcast for Set the Table,
Oh,
and
awesome.
so yeah, so I will keep everybody up to date on that, and then
And also
follow.
let me know how I can help you. Like, what can I
Oh,
do to support as you like build this out?
okay, sweet, sweet. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please go listen to Hungry Society, please. They are on Heritage Radio. You have a website for Hungry
Yes,
Society? Okay.
hungrysociety.com. And then my writing is korshawilson.com.
All right. So KorshaWilson.com and HungrySociety.com. So please go check those out. I'm not saying you need to like cough up a donation simply because she exists in the world, even though I believe she's worth that. However, her work is valuable enough to deserve your coinage and your patronage. So like if you feel inclined to bless her with a tithe, please do so. So anyway, all right, you guys have a good night, and we will catch up soon.
Yes, we will.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out a Hungry Society podcast on Heritage Radio. And to discover more of Korsha's writing, please visit her website, KorshaWilson.com. If you like tonight's episode and enjoy the Afros and Knives podcast, please share, like, subscribe, and comment. To connect with the community, be sure to visit afrosandknives.com and sign up for the newsletter. And now, a loving kindness meditation for trying times. You know, those moments when the guys who are setting off the fireworks have absolutely no chill. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. Until next time, this is Chef Tiffany. Have a great night.